Welcome back to another episode of Harmonious at Lunch, the show that fuels your business success. I'm Brandon Gano, your host and guide through the world of harmonious business growth. Today, we're unlocking powerful strategies with industry experts to help your business thrive. If you're a business owner, entrepreneur, or executive, you are in the right place. Join me and our incredible guests today on the journey to clarity, growth, and success. It is time to revolutionize your approach to business. Let's dive in with another episode of Harmonious at Lunch. Welcome back into some more bite-sized business advice. And today we're talking about everybody's favorite topic. We're talking about marketing. I know I love marketing. Maybe I'm just projecting a little bit, but it's just so fun. You can be creative. You can grow your business. You can attract new clients, or you could get it all wrong and do none of those things. But I'm sure our guest is going to help us figure that out. So why don't we welcome her on now? Amber Gaige, welcome to the show, and thank you for being here.
Hey, Brandon, it's a pleasure to be here. Any excuse to talk about marketing, I'm game.
I love that. Let's just roll with that forever. But let's dive right in, because marketing, I'm clearly excited about it, but I also know some people hate it, and you're very excited about it. So let's use our excitement and help those people who maybe haven't figured it out quite yet. So you help small businesses, small, medium businesses with their marketing. Let's start with the downsides. Where do you see a lot of people struggle in their marketing in that end of the marketplace, small, medium businesses?
You know, I think they struggle with just not knowing what to do, where to invest their money, who to trust. These are huge issues when you're a small, medium-sized business, and marketing feels like you're just sprinkling magic fairy dust into the wind and you're hoping that it works. That there's a big risk of knowing where you should put your marketing dollars.
So you're telling me you don't just throw money at Facebook and run ads and become a billionaire overnight? Is that not how it works?
It's shocking, right? I know. It's a riveting idea, but no, that's not typically how it works, you know?
All right. I thought you were going to be a good guest. Clearly, I was wrong, because I was hoping that was the magic pill. But anyway. Yeah.
Sorry. It's been nice knowing you, right?
Yeah, same here. We'll catch you next time. All joking aside, I have met people that have thought that. I'm sure you have too, but it's obviously much more complex than that. So let's say you're meeting somebody, whether it's a client, prospective client, or just somebody on the street who maybe is listening to this podcast. Where do we want to start in order to really put out marketing that's right for us, right for our business, and right for the clients that we want to attract? There has to be a starting point in identifying, what that is and where we need to go with it. So where do we start with people?
Yeah, I really think you have to start with the end in mind. No one knows your business like you. So understanding your operational goals and understanding what you're trying to accomplish with your marketing should be the guiding compass in where you're willing to make the investment. If you're a service company looking to add calls on your board, well, then there are places for marketing such as a Google local service ad. However, if you're a part of a franchise system and lead generation is not a problem, but no one knows about your brand, then perhaps there's a branding initiative that should be looked at through some print ads or magazines or a PR firm, something along those lines. But you have to really look at marketing as a marriage with operations, not as something that stands in the corner and is going to move the needle on its own. There has to be a collaboration between operations and marketing from the start.
As an ops nerd myself, I am just so excited that you said that, because I that's when it works best, is when those two teams, regardless of the size of your business, when those two functions work really well together, and they complement each other. Because I've seen so often, I'm sure you have too, marketing brings people in, and then the next step in that pipeline totally drops the ball. Maybe it's even sales, and they're saying a completely different message, and they're scaring away clients. So if you're going to go in and work with somebody, it sounds like you need to be seeing the whole picture before you start running those ads or doing that marketing. What are you looking for from, I guess, the lens of congruency between how people flow through the entire business as a customer?
Yeah, we sit down with every single new potential client and ask them to educate us on their business, their processes, their procedures, their goals, their team, their infrastructure. What CRM are you using? What's worked in the past? What's frustrated you in the past? Help us to really understand where those holes are. And then we spend as much time telling people what not to do as what to do. We're pretty much the antithesis of a typical marketing agency, Brandon, because we want to say, okay, if you haven't had success in Google Ads, well, maybe there's a reason for that. Let's pull up your website and see. If you're getting inbound phone calls, but your CSRs are not converting them, okay, well, there's an issue. Maybe we need to put some recordings on to find out where the objections are. There really has to be a dissection, if you will, of what's worked and what hasn't. And then, of course, we love to do the marketing audits too to see how people are appearing online, because we know that 99% of people are watching television online now, and all consumers are buying things from their cell phones. So if you're not mobile friendly and having a healthy online presence, you're missing the boat in some way or another.
Absolutely. Dissection sounds like a terribly scary word. I'm just going to put that out there. But I have a feeling you can help us, and you have a methodology with the 4Cs framework. I love frameworks. We talked about this before we started recording. I am an absolute nerd. You admitted to being a nerd too. So if you come on this show with a framework, you know we're going to talk about it. So why don't we dive into the 4Cs? Because I think this can help people understand, at least from their seat, looking at their own business, where their marketing is, maybe where they're missing the boat, and then we can talk about revisiting it. So let's start with the first C.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wrote this book. It happens to be an international bestseller. I was very privileged to have it hit the international bestseller list on Amazon last year in 4 countries. And what I found was that people appreciated a good framework, right, Brandon? And so
because we're all nerds on the inside.
We're all nerds, right? Give us a system. Give us something that we can implement, right? Without maxing out our brain capacity. And after over 20 years of experience in marketing with entrepreneurs and small businesses, we found ourselves repeating this framework again and again. So it made sense to make it duplicatable and documented so that even people who didn't want to work with us could implement it on their own. So the first C of effective marketing is clear copy. If you can't clearly and succinctly talk about your business in a way that people will shut up and listen and understand the benefit of working with you, then you're wasting your marketing dollars. Understanding what makes you unique and what you bring to the table and how you serve your clients, that's a huge aspect. And most people overlooked this. So clear copy is the first C. And I like to use the Donald Miller brand of the story branding your business. It's a 7-part framework. You go through it in 90 minutes. And at the end of the day, you've got a beautiful blockbuster story that explains who you are as a company and what you do for your clients.
All right. I want to talk about this first C, because I see a lot of people get hung up here. I know I've been guilty of this myself. I also want to back up a little bit how you started that answer just casually saying, oh, I happen to write a book that's an international bestseller. That's kind of a big deal, first of all. You don't just like breeze past that like you did. So congratulations on that. And we'll make sure the book is down below in the show notes for those of you watching and listening. But this first C, it's so hard to write clear copy for someone who's in the business. Like I said, I've struggled with this. Our clients have struggled with this. I know friends who have struggled with this. You think you're being clear because you're saying it the way you would normally say it to an employee or to a customer, but you're just being met with stone face on the other side. People don't understand what you're saying because you are the expert in that topic. So how do you make sure you're really being clear to the customer and how to make sure they understand it?
Yeah. Well, I liken it to being at a bad cocktail party where you're sitting there and you're trying to network and everyone is so busy talking about themselves that no one really forms good connections. Everyone wears a sign around their neck that says, make me feel important. So I like to tell my clients, rather than leading with who you are and what you do, why don't you lead with questions and ask, what are the problems that your clients are trying to solve right now? And then you back into it by saying the solutions that you provide to the problems. So if we begin with the problems that we can solve for other people through our products or services, we don't have to cram our own branding down their throats. We can lead with questions from a servant leadership perspective.
So what are the best ways, some of the best ways to do that? Because you can't do it on the website, right? Like just the homepage on your website says, what are you struggling with? That's obviously not going to connect with your audience. But how do you start to ask questions to your ideal prospects? Maybe you've been in business for a decade. Maybe you're new in business. How do you really
Yeah.
find those right people? Start to ask those questions and then formulate the answer in a way that when they do get to your website or they look at it and want to take action.
Yeah, I think you can call it out on your website. I think you can call out the hero image that says, "Are you a business owner struggling to generate 5 times the amount of sales?" Or let's say you're selling, widgets or frameworks, and you're saying, "Are your frameworks not flying off the shelves?" I mean, I think by leading with questions and looking at it from the perspective of your client, you're then able to engage them in such a way that they go, "Oh, wait a minute, someone sees me and sees my problem." And then directly underneath that website, you can say, "Here are the 3 ways that we help you. We help you define your widget, define your audience, and deploy it out to the market." So never once did I mention my company name, but I focused on what the client needed first and foremost. So if you look at my website, I say, "We make marketing easy for busy entrepreneurs." The only reason that you see our logo is because it's the upper left-hand corner of the website. But if we're calling out the problem that someone is experiencing, then we're engaging them, we're inviting them into a conversation that says, "And by the way, we have this solution to help you."
I love this. And by definition, by calling out that specific problem, you're showing your authority, right? It's like, I
Absolutely.
wouldn't know you're having that. I wouldn't know to ask that question if I didn't already know how to solve the problem.
Right.
So I love that methodology. Okay. First C, beautiful. Love it. There's 3 more. Let's go to the second
Yeah.
C.
Consistent branding is the second C. So often we are tempted to put our brand anywhere and everywhere, right? We made it with clip art. I'm showing my age there. Or, we made it with Canva and we didn't actually establish a brand standard of hex codes and fonts. And so no matter what we do, it doesn't consistently appear in the magazine articles, in the postcards, in our websites. It looks off. So your branding needs to be consistent, and it needs to be consistently placed in the right places that's going to cause a interest level of your ideal customers. So making sure that your branding is consistent, making sure it's presentable, making sure it's clear, that's a huge part of making sure that people understand who you are, what you do, and how you help them.
I love it. You mentioned him before, Donald Miller. If you confuse, you lose, right?
Fuse you lose. That's right. Yeah. And a good brand should stand alone. You shouldn't have to have an explainer underneath a logo that says what you do. Everyone recognizes the Nike stripe. You're selling sports stuff. You don't need it to say underneath it that it's Nike. Amazon, same way. It's an Amazon. So when you're looking at creating that consistent branding, make sure it's a standalone mark that's incredibly clear.
Yeah. How do we do that for small businesses though? Because let me use this example. Those behemoth companies out there, the brand,
Yeah.
the
Oh,
Amazon
yeah.
Smile, the Nike Swoosh, like you said,
Yeah.
thousands of other brands, same exact thing. We try to get cute as small business owners and we copy them. Breast
Yeah.
Cancer Awareness Month, and we do something pink. Are we copying them too much sometimes where we have not developed that consistent brand and we don't have the leeway to then do those creative things? Should we just focus on really pounding our brand and our message into our clients' heads?
Mhm.
Or can we do that stuff? I'm curious your take on that.
Yeah, I do think there's room for it once your brand is established. I mean, I've been a part of several national brands that for the month of breast cancer awareness, they maintained their brand, but their technicians wore pink booties inside every single house to highlight breast cancer awareness month. So sure, there's opportunities where you can bring those things in, but never at the sacrifice of your primary brand. Complementary, but not substitutionary.
Yeah, because technically, I mean that the pink brand is brand, so you're
Sure.
adopting that at that time. And if your brand isn't strong enough to stand on its own, or if you lean too far, you could sacrifice your brand. I like that answer. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we got a couple minutes left, and we got 2 more C's. I don't know if we can do it, but I am going to put a resource on the screen for people, and it's in the show notes to make sure you can figure out all 4 C's from Amber. But why don't we talk about the third C? Because I think this one's super important too, and a lot of people get it wrong.
Sure. Customer demographic is where we can lose our shirts when it comes to our marketing dollars. If you don't know who is actually buying from you and you're trying to market to everyone, there's a strong chance you are wasting valuable dollars. So, doing a reverse append on your database to know who people are that are buying from you and the products or service that they are purchasing will help you to then identify what strong calls to action are most effective and where you should be putting those calls to action. So, understanding not just the demographics of male, female, and geographics, but what are the psychographics? What are the motivating factors, that are bringing your clients back to you again and again? Take the time to invest in a good database analysis to get a clear picture of who your customers are. Because at the end of the day, when you understand who your customers are, you'll better understand where to position your marketing messages in a place where they're most likely to see you.
And what if we're in the place where, we've been in business for 5 to 10 years, and really all we have is a name, a phone number, and an email for our clients? I mean, I've met so many people in that scenario, and there's nothing wrong with that because that's just how they started their business and they never redid it. But now you have an opportunity. But if you're in that scenario, how do you go and perform that analysis? Or is that the time to maybe hire a third-party company?
I would recommend hiring a third party company because there are third party companies out there, ourselves included, that can take the name, the email address, and the phone number and formulate a strong geographic and demographic picture that says, here are the common threads among this buying group. It is possible.
I love that Amber's just flexing on us left and right in this episode, us included, international bestseller. I love it. So let's get to the fourth C then before we wrap this episode up. What's the last thing we need to do in this framework?
The last and final C is to make sure that you have a repeatable channel management process internally so that you're not engaging in a turn 'em and burn 'em approach. Businesses are not sustainable when you're turning them and burning them. You need to be able to upsell and consistently serve your clients again and again and again to create brand loyalty and to tie them to you. Also, we know that there's ever a desire to sell your business, you need a strong subscription methodology. So, if their upselling opportunity, do you have the opportunity to stay in communication with them? Are you doing a lead generator email list? Are you cultivating your email list? Do you do a newsletter? How are you staying in front of your current customers so that when a need strikes, they're not losing top of mind awareness and they're thinking of your brand and not going to a competitor?
I love it. And does this also play into how you market to people? Because I see a lot of, you mentioned service businesses. I know before we were talking, you mentioned franchises, restaurants, and in those industries in particular, there's so many things that you offer, right? And a lot of businesses, you have a lot of different products and services, and it's common to go to the marketplace with everything. Whereas if you just focused on one thing and you understood very clearly how that led to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, your customer isn't overwhelmed and you're meeting them exactly where they need to be met. Is that kind of what you're talking about with this fourth C as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you have to understand where your customer is, and you have to also be able to predict what else they might need. If you are upselling, let's say you're an HVAC company and you know that you're going to sell a new system or even a maintenance program for that system, well, then why not put them on a subscription plan for coming out and changing out the air filters once a quarter, so that you're doing a regular maintenance and making sure that your eyes are on the project, and if there is an opportunity, you're already there to meet that need, rather than letting it go unannounced and then they have a problem, which then presents an opportunity for them to call a competitor. Staying in front of that customer, staying in front of that need, staying in acknowledgement of the fact that there are maintenance agreements to be made. Huge, important factors.
And also making sure they know that your emergency service number, they know that you do that service, and then probably predicting when they're going to need either a new system or a major overhaul in a certain number of years. If you're an expert, you should have all of those things identified, and you should get in front of that customer months or years before they happen.
Yes, which is a huge component or reason to have a healthy email list. We're seeing that no less than 43 interactions online before someone makes a buying decision now. So if you have a name brand that's showing up consistently in their inbox, you're automatically cutting through a lot of the mistrust because you're there. So take advantage of it. Stay in front of your clients.
Did you say 43 interactions?
43 online interactions before people make a single buying decision.
I'm exhausted just hearing that. I remember a few years ago, it was 7 to 10, and now we're up to 43.
Yeah, when you look at the amount of information that people are inundated with, and we're also seeing that brand loyalty has gone by the wayside. What's been replaced with brand loyalty is the immediacy of the need. So I don't care if I'm buying Keds, Reeboks, or Skechers. If I need shoes and I see an ad and it's convenient, I'm going to go with whatever ad that is. Just the way that we're shopping these days.
Crazy. These damn customers. I'm kidding. It's not the customer. It's our fault.
Right? You never own a customer, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, Amber, this was a lot of fun. I know the website's on the screen, but where should people go to learn more about you and learn more about your frameworks, their marketing, and how you can help them with their marketing?
Yeah, we'd love to connect with you. We're on all the social media channels, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. Our website is farbeyondmarketing.com. We're happy to give a free marketing consultation to any busy business owner that wants some free advice. And you can find us online.
I love it. She's an expert, busy business owner. She snuck it in there again. So you know exactly who she's talking about. It's a masterclass. But Amber, thank you so much. Wherever you're watching, listening, all those links, social media, the websites, they're down below in the show notes. So make sure you go check those out. We'll see you on tomorrow's episode of Harmonious at Lunch. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Harmonious at Lunch podcast. Make sure you subscribe on whatever platform you're on. And we want to invite you to join us in the Small Business Success Facebook group, our private group where guests and listeners come together to grow your business. We want impact-driven entrepreneurs who are ready to go to the next level in this group so we can all share ideas, collaborate, and grow our businesses together. Go to whatif.com/group, and we want to invite you to join today. See you on the next episode of Harmonious at Lunch.